Report.
Okay. Public, please hold comments until the select board chairman opens the agenda items for public comment. When addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. Okay, minutes. I will take the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
I think was that the one that I
Yeah,
wasn't here,
you
so
were
I
here.
will abstain.
Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Request appointment of Cal Roundsevall as full-time firefighter EMT at the probationary base rate of $29.21, effective August 27th.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Accept resignation of Meredith Randolph from the Planning Board Committee effective July 18, 2024.
Accept resignation with regret.
Second.
And I would like to say to Meredith, thank you for your service.
He served a long time.
Yes. All in favor? Request to amend appointment of Ann Dalton as alternate planning board member to full-time planning board member.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Request appointment of Daniel Burke as alternate planning board member.
Appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Confirm appointment of Stephen Anastasia to the warrant committee.
Move confirmation.
Second.
Hey, anything to say? All in favor? Consent agenda, investment and interest earnings performance for fiscal year ended June 30, 2024, unaudited. Hancock County Planning Commission letter, July 23, 2024.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Anybody have anything they want to pull out?
Just wondered, Geraldine, if you had any thoughts about, or Brian, if you had any thoughts about the hazardous waste event we've always had that they're saying we can't afford. Is that something that's
Who said?
the county, Hancock County Planning Commission?
I think they're talking about a separate event.
What's that?
I believe they're talking about.
Oh, it's a separate, it's not our
It's
thing.
not.
Oh,
the-
okay,
it's not the
okay,
ADD one, so
okay,
ADD is going forward with theirs.
okay,
September 21st.
never mind then.
There you go.
Yeah,
I know where to put my hazardous waste.
You said
Oh.
September 21st,
Or
sorry.
bad?
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
town person. Is the hazardous waste.
All in favor? Any reports? Unfinished business, town manager report to Otter Creek Aid Society.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate that you invited me to go to that event. I thought it was very good. Very spirited. I'm not gonna give a recap of that. I sent you all the link to the Bar Harbor story that does an excellent job of not only going over what happened at that meeting, but goes all the way back and reprises the whole situation from day one kind of way to the present. So anyone that does read that, I think would be certainly up to date about where that is. So I'm going to skip that, but I do have some things that I want to go over with you. So one of the things that I want you to take is a copy of a letter from Kevin Schneider, the Acadia National Park supervisor, to George S. Mitchell, former senator. You didn't get one? Oh.
Yeah, I got two. Holding out on you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over bits and pieces of that as I go through what I want to say. This is a letter that Kevin Schneider wrote to George Mitchell in return from a letter that George Mitchell wrote to Kevin Schneider, talking about some of the issues with Acadia National Park governance that Steve Smith had raised with former Senator Mitchell. And so this is the answer to those. I do want to kind of also preface my remarks that I don't have, that our issues are not with the Acadia Park administration. I found that both Kevin and Brandon to be fine people to work with. So I think we need to separate that whole issue. That this is something that we are having issues with the park in that regards. I think as we go through this letter, in some ways they are hamstrung, but I'd like to to try to convince them to kind of think a little bit more about what we could perhaps do to some of those. So if we can get that on the record, this is not, we're not attacking the current Acadian National Park Administration. Okay,
Can I just ask one question?
you
I had
may.
a question about this, and I think a bunch of other folks did too. Off Grover Avenue, there is now a trail that goes from Grover Avenue all the way down to the Nexus, right by the west side of the causeway. Okay, so you have Blackwood's Campground that has a trail that goes from the entrance through the woods to the causeway. And then you have a trail that comes from Grover Avenue through the woods, parallel to the inner harbor, that meets up, and then there's a stairway that goes down to the loop road, okay? So that's always been a bone of contention, because the law actually reads that inholdings have a right to year-round access. And that tote road that used to go through there was turned into a path with a culvert, which makes it impassable for vehicles. Here, Kevin refers to this path, I'm assuming it's the same road,
That's what I think.
Quarry Road, and he says it's not park property.
That's what
That's
we
what I
want to
want.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted, to get with Steve and make sure that we're talking about the same thing, but I think we are, so. Good, thank you for bringing that up, John. All right, so let me just kind of go through things that I want to talk about. Get that here. So, here we go. I want to change, I want to change the presentation title that I put in those little handouts. Those are kind of clips of the proposed PowerPoint that I'd like to get out around. But I've been thinking about it. I'd like to change the title slightly to Against All Odds, Otter Creek Struggle to Reclaim Its Working Waterfront. Because that's what we actually are wanting to see accomplished. So if I'm planning on changing that title to that. So I think Against All Odds, Otter Creek Struggle to Reclaim Its Working Waterfront is a much better working title for this presentation. The second point that I want to make is I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And I think one of our problems in all of our dealings with Otter Creek and its issues is that it's been an ad hoc and unfocused effort. Some citizens will come to our board and they'll protest and they'll say, we need your help because some issues we're having with Acadian National Park. And then a town manager will go over and they'll sit down, or a select board member will go down and sit down with the town administration and talk about it. But the problem is that very little, if anything, has ever resulted from those efforts. We have the conversations and we go our separate ways and nothing happens. So what I'm going to propose is that we should adopt a town policy around the 5 goals, or they can be amended, of course, that I put in your packet. And they shouldn't also be considered all-inclusive. So if we have a town policy around the goal of reestablishing the working waterfront of Otter Creek, that effort would not lapse with the end of tenure for municipal administrators, select boards, and A&P administrations. So we wouldn't be starting over every time a park superintendent changes, or every time the town manager changes, or every time the composition of the select board changes. And I think so that's important. I think we have a focused and predictable effort along those lines. And I listed how we present this and how we pursue this is what I call the 6C principle. And the 6C principle is the following. First C is creativity, which I think has been sorely lacking a lot of these efforts. And I've thought a lot lately about the Seawall DOT project, about how that project was going nowhere because people said, our rules say we've got to have this, and we can't do this until we do this. But the citizens rose up and they said, no, we've got problems. We've got businesses and we've got people that need emergency medical services that can't get to it. And so all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, it took too long, but eventually what happened was those rules didn't get abandoned, but there were modifications made to allow the process to run its course, but the problem to be solved in the interim. So if you've been over to Seawall lately, you see a perfectly beautiful road. Of course, we know it has to have more work to withstand the storms, but a perfectly beautiful road. And I went over Sunday to take a walk. And it was just packed with people. There were cars all along both sides. I went down to the picnic area, and people with the picnic tables, they were having a great time. And so what would have happened if the people hadn't insisted that
That
be
was done in
taken
4
place?
days.
Done in
Yeah.
4
Yeah,
days.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so we're working on problems that haven't been solved for 90 years. And it's time that we did get serious about it.
I have a suggestion, if I may.
Yeah, anytime,
With
please.
your idea of creating a policy encompassing those 5 points that you listed. Would it or would it not be more effective to make it, given the fact that town managers change, boards change, and all that, make it a binding resolution and include it
Yes.
in our comprehensive plan?
Absolutely, yeah. What I'm gonna present today, I'm not gonna ask you to enact, but I'm just throwing out, because I've been just kind of cobbled this together rather quickly. I think the precepts of it are very sound, but things like we're talking about here, Rick, we really need to do that. So yeah, so I'm just gonna present the outline and the possibilities, and then we'll, in a future meeting, let's put this all together, because I think
Right.
that's a super idea. It's like you say, town managers do change and.
Boards change and policies
Yeah.
are open to change at any time,
That's right, that's right.
so.
And again, I say that's been half the problem is the personnel change, the issues just go away and then we just start over and over and over again. Great, so that was the first C, creativity. The second C is common sense, and again, I reference the Seawall DOT project. And also, as regards this proposed turnaround, it really shouldn't cost thousands of dollars in surveys and other miscellaneous expenses and take months to acquire a piece of unused land, which is just over half the size of an NBA court or an infield on a baseball diamond. It really is not, there's gotta be a better way. And we need to find that better way, and we need to work with the people that can make the changes to make that happen. That's why I think it's important that the effort be ongoing, because these may take some time, but I think if people can see that we are actually on a road to a proposed solution to some of these things, I think momentum can be gained. And I think the more people learn about this, the more media outlets that may pick it up and carry the story. It makes, it does make perfect sense, it's certainly.
In regard to your changing of the title to reflect reclaiming the working waterfront, there is a fervor of interest in Washington right now regarding Maine's working waterfront
Great,
and the efforts that are being done, not only locally, but regionally, down through, all through New England states. So it's time to strike while the iron's hot, so to
Yes.
speak.
yes,
But the people that we need to vote to make these changes happen are vested in it right now.
sure. Yeah,
So I think that's a great idea to change that title to
yeah.
put a spotlight on Maine's working waterfront.
Absolutely.
I think that something to consider too is, there's gotta be something beyond a simple, gift of land for a turnaround. If you wanna really have a working waterfront there, it means you have a municipal presence there. And you actually have all that coastline in there is municipal. Like the marina here.
exactly.
So
I love it.
have a plan for that. Where's that gonna come from?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of work to do around it, but I think
Acquire and then grow.
yeah, I think I'm excited in the fact that I think this board seems to be very strongly in favor of these efforts. And it's a lot of work, but I think it's worthwhile. So that's the second thing, is common sense. And the third one is collegiality, and that's using the golden rule. And what I mean by the golden rule is not he or she who has the golden rules. You know, we treat each other with respect and dignity. I mean, that is a given. And then the fourth C is conciliation. And that is the recognition that the federal officials need to recognize that the loss of their working waterfront is a devastating blow to the village of Otter Creek from which it has never recovered. And I've never heard any conciliation on that. It was just, well, that was yesterday, that happened, nothing to see here, folks, let's just move on. So that fourth C, the conciliation is very important. The fifth C, collaboration. Local and federal officials work together, not against one another, for the common goal of public service. I don't think that's asking too much. I think that's what we're all here
For
for.
enhancing the public interest.
That's right, to enhance the public interest. And the sixth is, from time to time, they will, on both sides, require compromise. I'll give you a quote, and I'll give you a gold star if you can tell me who said this quote. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but never let us fear to negotiate. Recognize that? John F. Kennedy inaugural address.
I was gonna say that, but I went to either that or Roosevelt.
Yeah. Those
Well, if you've done it in the accent.
Nixon or Kennedy? It's usually Nixon and Kennedy.
I can do both, actually.
Occasionally at Churchill.
Yeah, churches. Yeah, those are probably my three go-tos, isn't it? So, here's what happens, when you use the 6 Cs, what you get is evolutionary change. When you don't use the 6 Cs, what you get is revolutionary change. For example, the American colonies just before in the 1760s, or the Easter Rising in Dublin in 1916. Those events happened as a result of those principles not being followed. Okay, so now we can go to the letter a little bit. You guys have already started to look at that a little bit. So I've got a few observations from Kevin Schneider's letter to Senator George Mitchell regarding the concerns raised by Steve Smith to Senator Mitchell. In paragraph 2 is a reference to Public Law 99-420, passed in 1986, and established the Acadia National Park boundary, and established the Advisory Commission made permanent by Public Law 116-9 in 2019. I think it's very possible as we move on through these discussions that it may be determined that there may be some need to be amendments to that boundary bill. And any such amendment should and can be crafted in a very narrow fashion to prevent the occurrence of unintended consequences in other national parks. That's the slippery slope theory. And I think should we need to recommend some changes to that boundary legislation, they can be crafted very narrowly to avoid unintended consequences. Paragraph 3 refers to some of Mr. Smith's requests as violation of park regulations, and specifically mentioned is vista clearing. And I assume that this must refer to the clearing of vistas by non-federal employees, because A&P has a vista clearing item on its advisory commission agendas. Paragraph 4 refers to reasonable access to the Aid Society fish house. And although the fish house is not municipal property, we could and should offer our assistance to the Aid Society in working with the park to determine exactly what constitutes reasonable access. and if certain laws and policies may need to be modified to ensure it. Well, I think that's a very important point. The fifth paragraph references the ecological health of the inner harbor and the 1993 land exchange to build a boat launch. Of course, one of the goals on our 5 goals is to restore the tidal flushing to Otter Creek Harbor to the same state as it was when there was a trestle bridge as opposed to a causeway. Okay, then and it also, it references the town concerns that the area provided is not sufficient to allow vehicles with boat trailers to turn around. And he says, quote, "This area is constrained by wetlands on one side and steep topography on the other, which is why the original land exchange was not larger." That leads me to believe that there must have been some consideration at that time of donating enough land or swapping enough land to be able to build the turnaround, but perhaps the technology of that time made that, they said, well, this is not practical, this can't be done, but we do have a engineering study from Greg Johnston Associates that said that this is feasible and it is permittable. And I mean by permittable, we can get the wetland permits and those things. And Greg, I actually saw Greg today during one of my travels around town, had a nice brief conversation with him. It's not something that these permits should be terribly difficult to achieve. He says that these things are very, very, I don't want to use the word easy because that may not be, but these things are not difficult to do. So, if the intention had been to include the extra land, had the project been considered feasible at that time, I think we need to determine if the original properties of the land swap are currently of similar value, including the proposed additional square footage. If so, we should work towards reaching an agreement that would not require a land swap. So if we take a look and assess the values of those properties, we can go back, what are they today? Would those properties then be the equivalent value today of that, if that land had been included originally? Because it certainly seems to me that the intention at first was to do that. And so I think that's something that we could pursue as an alternative, because I think that would not be in violation really necessarily of the parks having to give up extra. What they did is they withdrew what they had originally offered because they didn't think it was feasible to do at the time, but it can. So that might be a workaround. I think we should pursue that as a possible workaround.
Derlin,
Yes, sir.
this is Kendall. I just wanted to just to get this, be clear on this, that the value of the land when the original swap took place was to be weighed in as being more than what it originally was. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying, I guess, Kendall, is it looked like, since he mentions the turnaround, that at the time, the land swap was the size it was because they didn't think that the turnaround could be built because of the topography and the wetlands. This turns out not to be the case.
Yes.
So perhaps we should re-examine that in that context. That's all I'm saying.
And the swap that took place back then, the conservation easement, should have sufficed for the excess land that is needed at this time that should have originally been part of the property.
Good.
That's it.
Good, I think, yes, sir. And
I think I've got it.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing for you to mention in September.
Yes.
When you go
Most
back. And I
certainly.
appreciate, Kendall, your clarification on that.
Okay,
Really?
thank you, Darla.
When is that September meeting?
I got to look at it. It's usually like the first week or so, but I'll
Will
get
you
you.
let us know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's gonna be at Schoodic this time, I believe. But yeah, I'll get that date out. I apologize I was remiss. I should have done that tonight. I was so excited about these other things. And working on this and several other little projects I've been playing with. Oh, can I just go off topic for a second? We're gonna bring back the elected officials meetings in October.
Oh,
And
good.
we're gonna have a great agenda. As somebody once said, it's gonna be huge.
For the League of Towns.
The League of Town, yeah, it will be, one of those night meetings, and we've come up with three topics that need to be done, and I'm working with Noel to build the agenda. He's offered his services to help build the agenda. It would be workforce housing coupled with transportation, coupled with collaboration. And the October meeting would cover would cover the workforce housing, and it would also cover the transportation element. And then we would come back in the spring. And that's where we bring in the collaboration piece, because of the work plan that gets developed as a result of that meeting. How do we collaborate to make these things happen? Because we realize that both the transportation and the workforce housing is a much bigger issue than what any one town can handle by itself. So I think I'm kind of excited about it. I'm still working on the details of where it's gonna be.
Do you have a
know it's gonna
date?
be-
Do you have a date?
It's gonna be early October, but I haven't nailed down the date exactly, but it's gonna be similar in time to.
Before the 18th.
Yes, yes, it definitely. before the 18th. So anyway, I'm sorry, now I'm off topic. No, here we go, I can get back on. So here are some rough next steps, and we've already talked, and Rick has already talked about some things that we need to do. So this is just sort of a rough outline, and I want to make sure we incorporate all the things that we talked about. So we consider passing a select board resolution endorsing the restoration of the village of Otter Creek's working waterfront. And that becomes formal. Then we develop a similar set of goals as those proposed to start the process. So I've given you those 5 goals. We can work on those, we can modify, we can add to them. That was just sort of kind of like at this point, a placeholder for consideration. So that would be the second step. Then I think we should also have like an organization, like some members from, say, the Otter Creek Aid Society, appoint several memberships to work with us to determine how best to advance this goal. We should invite A&P officials to attend these meetings, and we should have a select board member as a liaison. This is just, again, these are just rough ideas that I want you to think about so that when you're ready to craft your resolution, they're all there. So again, the process carried out under the auspices of the 6C rule, and that's all I've got.
That's terrific.
I hope this is worthwhile for you, because I'm pretty confident that we're gonna get a whole new series, more stories. This thing now is gonna stay alive, and it's not gonna run away. I think we'll get more stories, and the deeper we get into this, the more stories we get. So, again, I appreciate you taking the time. I know I've made what was supposed to be a real short meeting a little bit longer, but I think it was worth my time, and I'm happy it's worth yours. That's it.
Well,
Yeah.
Berlin, I for one, this is Kendall again. The terrific energy that you've brought to this over the last 4 or 5 years it's tremendous. It's fueled a lot of ideas. We've gone in different directions. We've explored this thoroughly. I can't say enough. You're an excellent partner to work with. Your effort is great and tremendous energy. So I'm
Thank
thankful
you.
for working with you, Derlin.
Well, thank you, Kendall. I always tell people that I think being a town manager of Mount Desert is a great job, but I wouldn't recommend it to others, at least not for a while. So I kind of want to stay around and see if I can get this effort going, so we'll do inevitably have to pass it on. It's running up and smooth, and it can be pushed across the finish line. So I thank all of you for your assistance and your help in this.
All right, thank you.
Great.
All right, new business, consider authorizing Mike Bender, Fire Chief, to sign an indemnification, hold harmless and release agreement with the town of Bar Harbor for the purpose of storing their 1937 C-grade fire truck at the Mount Desert Fire Station #2. Is this an antique?
It is an antique, yeah, it's not even running, so it's gonna
Yeah.
be traded there, but they have been storing it at the Town Hill Fire Station for a number of years. The town of Bar Harbor does not own that building, I believe it's owned by the.
Village
Town Hill
improvement,
Food Society, yeah, something like that. And apparently Bar Harbor has been asked next week to remove the fire truck. So they were looking for temporary storage, so they can find more
Mhm.
permanent place to store it. We have an empty bay over in Seal Harbor, so. I told Chief Bartlett if it was okay to the board, we could store it for a limited time until they find more permanent places.
Were you able to actually drive it down the road to get there, or did you have to tow it?
We have to trailer it, it's not running. They have to trailer it,
Why do they want it?
excuse me.
Why do they want it?
History.
It's part of the town.
Can we donate it to the Sealco Auto Museum?
Well,
Well, we don't own it.
our rescue association, it's not part of the town.
Well,
It has, still has the 1927 American France ladder that used to be a bar.
Hmm.
So, yeah, they have organizations that have a tendency to hang on to these things.
So when you say for the time being until they can find a. Is there any mention of, oh, it's to August, okay,
Yeah.
till
we put
August,
a year-
a year, okay.
Year limit, yeah.
Yeah, that would be my concern,
Yeah,
it's like, okay,
Then
Yeah,
they'll drag it over
I know you-
somewhere else.
it's hard enough to get like a live tenant out of your building, let alone a dead fire truck.
I would move authorization.
Second.
Good, all in favor?
Thank you.
That was a tough one. All right. Review and approve propane bid from Coastal Energy. Coastal Energy at a price of $1.37 per gallon and authorize Public Works Superintendent Ben Jacobs on behalf of the town to contract for such purpose.
Move approval.
Purchase.
Second,
All in favor?
that's a great
That's a
price.
great price. I want that.
Yeah, I need to.
We,
No, never mind. Review and approve a contract in the amount of $15,000 with the Climate to Thrive for solar implementation support and to authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor? Review and approve a contract in the amount of $240,000 with Oliver Associates for professional and technical services and to authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second,
Good, any discussion?
yes, I just have one question. Is this kind of a retainer? It reads like it's a retainer for professional and technical services. What specifically are we authorizing the $240,000 for?
The letter contract that Bill put together describes the scope of work as well, so there's three primary areas. There's a little bit of work on Jordan Pond Road.
Okay.
There's the C Street Pump Station, which is kind of a few things. The pump station has a lot of flow that comes into it that's excess flow, so doing the next step of the study that Bill has already done to determine where that's coming from, which is gonna take a little bit more investigative work on his part, and then come up with a plan for how we reduce that. The pump station gets excess flows and sometimes discharges into the harbor. We have an SSO, sanitary sewer overflow. We need to resolve that. And then additionally, C Street is in need of repair. It hasn't been worked on in some time, and so it needs help. And then there's a section of Summit Road from a little off of Main Street, basically in front of the bank. There's where the Main Street project ended, over to Stanley Lane. Stanley to Manchester was done previously, also by Dole. And this last remaining segment needs to be taken care of. So
And
there's a
don't-
few things all rolled together.
Don't misunderstand, Brian. The reason I ask is to get it on the public record for the public who are watching and attending by Zoom. And here, an agenda item mentioned that sounds like it's a retainer, when in fact, the money is being authorized to do very specific things for improvements in our town.
Yes, it's a contract.
Thank you.
Question about storm overflow. What happens at Otter Creek?
Pumping station. We technically had an SSO there on a storm in March.
Mhm.
It filled on the interior of it, but it didn't come out the door. The door was remained closed. There was a threshold. It
Oh.
didn't really, but we did write it up as a spill, so we wrote up think it was 4 SSOs at that
Okay.
time. Otter Creek was one of those.
So those pumps are pretty high volume,
They do pretty well,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but. Infiltration and inflow INI, you're gonna hear it from me for years. We're gonna keep working on it. We've done the upgrades to the plants. Tony did a great job with that. This is sort of next in line for the things that we need to take on, and keep it so we're. Really having, keeping that excess water out. It's not good for the way we operate our plants. It tends to be too much. We have to oversize things in order to accommodate it. So it's best work on tightening up the system. And the DEP has been letting us know that we should make it a priority. So we are.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Move approval.
You have that.
Well, we did that.
A motion, all in favor? Thank you, thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Review and approve a contract in the amount of $14,208 with Gulf of Maine Research Institute for climate vulnerability assessments and to authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is grant funds.
Yeah, this is grant funds. Okay, this is a part of one of those grants we put.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Approve signature on engagement letter from James Wadman regarding audit of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024.
So approval. Second.
All in favor? Okay. Any other business? Well, let's do the treasurer's warrants. Approve and sign town invoices AP 2510 in the amount of $924,388.46.
Move approval and signature.
Second.
All in favor? Approve and sign state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2506, AP 2508, AP 2509, town payroll, PR 2502 and PR 2503 in the amount of $525,861.43.
Move approval.
Second.
Good, all in favor?
Martha, you voted as voted. I just can't see.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I just couldn't see.
Acknowledgement, school invoices, school payroll, PR 02, PR 03, and voided disbursements, V 2501, and town reissued voids, AP 2507.
Move acknowledgement.
Oh, in the amount of, hold on,
Sorry.
$228,542.82.
Move acknowledgement.
Second.
All in favor? Great.
We adjourn, Rick, when do you think we should bring that resolution in about Otter Creek back? I know it's a good idea, like you to email some of those to me and anyone else that's got some ideas about how that should go.
I think it would be in our best interests to do it sooner than later,
Right,
so that we have an opportunity to amend, correct, or whatever, and have it ready to, once we approve of it, to lateral it to the comprehensive plan committee and get it
Okay.
included in the comprehensive plan.
good.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we should, and that plan is gonna be starting up probably in October, so.
Say September or October.
So we really need to get going on that.
Also, it might be good to have that resolution in place before that meeting with the Park Advisory Committee.
Yes, that means that we should aim for the second meeting this month.
Yep,
Yeah, so if you guys can give me your thoughts on that, so I can
happy to.
pull that together of how that resolution should read, and we'll get that done. Yeah, good. Glad I asked, because that's an excellent point about the comprehensive plan committee and the park advisory meeting. So it sounds like some of you folks are gonna be attending, which would be great.
Maybe.
We won't know when it is.
Yes, yes, Mark, all right. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna send that to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.